Here it is in the flesh. We are driving the 2022 Toyota Innova HyCross today, and there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, this is a fresh look. There are completely revamped interiors, but even under the skin, there's a completely new monocoque platform. There's a new hybrid engine. There's a lot to unpack here. Welcome to Evo India and welcome to our first drive review of the 2022 Toyota Innova HyCross. Now before we dive right in, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the Evo India channel and leave a comment down below. What do you think of the way the Innova HyCross looks? Okay, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the styling. If you've seen my detailed walk around video, you can skip ahead to the driving, but those who haven't, stick around. First up, from the face of it, it looks more SUV-like, more aggressive, more macho. The bonnet line, it's now higher up. It has a more aggressive face. This hexagonal grille, that remains, but it's now wider, longer, bigger. The slim headlamps, they have a little bit of the Fortuner business going on in there. Below that, you've got these really aggressive looking bumpers, black cladding at the bottom. Mind you, this is an accessorized car, so all of this bit here, the Innova badging on the top, some of these highlights over here, they are all accessories. Now, when you come around to the side, you'll notice that the Innova has changed a fair bit in profile. First thing you notice, more black cladding over here. This is again going after that SUV-like inspiration. The previous Innova Crysta did not get blacked out cladding. This one does. Below that, you've got 18-inch wheels. These wheels, they've got this chromy, shiny finish. They actually look pretty good, a little jewelry on the car. Pretty neat. You've got the hybrid badge over here. Under the wing mirror, you'll notice a camera. That indicates this does have a 360-degree camera. More about that when we get inside the car. We've got to talk about the wheelbase of the Innova HyCross. It is 100 mm longer than the Innova Crysta, and that has made a difference to the space on the inside. The rear section again looks more bulky, more chunky. From some angles, it actually resembles the Hexa. From some angles, if you squint a little bit. But yes, the shape of it is a lot more, again, SUV-like. You've got these slim tail lamps over here. Again, more accessorized stuff over here. So that's not part of the standard package on the car. You've got more chunky black cladding at the bottom. I think this 4 skid plate is also an accessory. And from the rear, it looks pretty, well, meaty and substantial. In fact, the whole design has gotten more substantial. It has a lot more road presence than the Crysta. In the hotel parking lot, this car was parked alongside a Crysta, and there's no denying the fact that this just grabs so many more eyeballs. It's more macho, more in your face, and it just is a magnet for eyeballs. Now getting into the driver's seat, let's quickly run through all of the changes on the interiors. This dash is completely revised and I actually like how it looks. It looks a lot more welcoming, a lot more luxurious than the last one. The older Crysta, it felt a little dated, a little utilitarian even. This one doesn't feel that way. It actually feels very high quality and very well put together. In front of me, I've got a sort of hybrid digital and analog instrument cluster. I think it's really easy to read. The MID in the center is very easy to navigate through as well, and all of that is very well put together. Information comes at you well. There's a lot of information. This is a hybrid after all. It does have ADAS features after all, but all of it comes at you very nicely. The steering wheel, nice, chunky, easy to hold. With the engine on, look how light it is. This is something that's new. It's got electric power steering, and that makes it really easy to use on the go, unlike the hydraulic power steering on the older car. Steering mounted controls, I've got ADAS controls over here. Very useful if you want to turn them on, off, all of that business. You can control it from here. Right, in the center, we've got this large infotainment screen. It's actually very well put together, easy to use, sensitive to touch, all of that stuff. You've even got hard buttons for volumes and the home button, which I really appreciate. Below that, you've got your aircon controls. Again, hard buttons for the important bits like your fan speed, your temperature controls, and even to select the temperature settings of the rear. This does have 2-zone climate control. You've got ventilated seats, very useful for the Indian summers. They cool you rather well, I'm very impressed. You've got this gear selector on the dash. Now in my walk around video, I read a comment somewhere about somebody saying that this is not a very premium touch, it feels very utilitarian, but I really don't have a problem with it. This is an automatic, it's not a manual. I'm not touching this more than once after I get into the car, and if putting it up here frees up a lot of space for me on the inside to use, I'm more than happy with that compromise. In fact, this is a good reach. I can reach it very well, and I've got all of the controls for the drive modes and the EV mode and all of that right here, easily accessible next to it. I think this is actually very well designed. Below that, you've got a USB Type-C and a Type-A port. You've got large cup holders. You've got a large storage bin in here. Check this out. This is the key. And you've got large storage bins in the door as well. Other interesting things to note, the materials used on the inside are actually very nice. You've got good soft touch materials on the doors. You've got soft touch materials on the dash. It feels very premium. In terms of equipment, you've got memory seats. So you've got electrically adjustable front seats with the memory function. I've got this massive panoramic sunroof. The 360-degree camera I told you about, you can access it from here. So it's packing a lot of stuff, and something that I mentioned in my last video is that it doesn't get a wireless phone charger. That's a mistake, I apologize. The wireless charger is available as an accessory, but it's available over here on the passenger side of the dash. Little inconvenient if you're using it as the driver. I guess it doesn't matter if you're the passenger and using it. Overall, the cabin of the Innova HyCross has taken a step up from that of the Crysta. I think it's really much more evolved, much better. It makes good use of space. Everything is very logically laid out. It feels very well finished. And overall, this is a nice place to be. I would love spending some time in here. Now, more important than the first row is the second row, because this is where most Innova HyCross owners will be spending their time. First things first, the amount of space that I have, it's plenty. This is generous amounts of knee room. It's more than enough, and this is not even in the rearmost seat setting. I can take this further back and free up even more knee room. I can even bring it forward and a fair bit forward if I'd like to free up more room for the third row. But there is one issue. Down there under the driver's seat are the batteries for the hybrid system. So I can't really tuck my feet in deep inside under the driver's seat. I need enough room for my feet behind the driver's seat, and that's how I judge how much distance I need in the second row. Still more than adequate. In terms of headroom, it's pretty good. You know, I've got a couple of inches, more than a couple of inches over here. The other stuff that you need to know about the back seat is that the floor is now flat. So since it's front wheel drive, since it's a monocoque, there is no more transmission tunnel running down the center of the car. That leaves more room for my feet over here. In terms of equipment, I've got automatic climate control with my separate zone controls right over here. I've got two USB slots at the bottom over here, both Type-Cs. You've got a sun blind over here. You've even got this tray table, but like I said earlier in my previous review as well, this feels flimsy. It's not as secure and sturdy as I would have liked it to be. You can store it away, not so much trouble. You've got your armrests, all of that. And the trick feature about these seats is once I get it all the way back, I can actually electrically get the ottoman out, you know, and this comes up a fair bit, and I can recline the seat from here. And that makes it a fairly comfortable place to be. This will recline a fair bit back, and with these two things together, I've got a lot of comfort in here. A couple of things to note. This ottoman, when I do extend it, my feet tend to hit the driver's seat in front. Now this can't be solved in this seat, but when I do move to the passenger side, the co-driver side, I can move that front seat all the way in front, move the seat back all the way down, and get plenty of room to recline. Then you've genuinely got like a first class cabin over there. That aside, panoramic sunroof, lot of glass area. This is genuinely a very nice back seat to be driven around in. Now we need to talk about the third row, and there are significant changes to this space. Firstly, it's a lot more comfortable in here, and that's because this being a monocoque platform, this being front wheel drive, it's allowed Toyota to keep the floor a lot lower down. That means a more comfortable seating position over here, because my feet are lower down to the floor, my knees are not in an upwards, skywards position. I have better under thigh support in this third row, and overall it's just a much more comfortable place to be. In terms of space, I actually have a decent amount of knee room. Most third rows have your knees in your chin, but this I can actually like genuinely stretch out a little bit, not comfortably, but I can put my feet a fair bit forward, and that's because this car is so long. I can keep this middle seat in a mid setting and still have plenty of space in the middle row and space in the third row. So they've packaged this really well. They've designed the space for legroom, particularly in the back for the second and third row, very intelligently. It's very easy to find a good compromise. Headroom, okay, it's a little limited, it's not so great over here, but apart from that I really have no complaints. I've got a 5-volt socket over there, no USB ports in the back seat, but it's worth noting that the back seat now seats 3. So you've got 2 headrests here, you can fit another headrest in here, and you can seat 3 people in the back seat. Well, now let's head into the driving seat and see what that's like. Right, first impressions of the Toyota Innova HyCross. The first thing that really stood out to me was the fact that this feels less like a truck and more like a car. And I think that's down to one very specific thing: the weight of the steering. This is now an EPS system compared to the hydraulic system on the old Innova Crysta. And it's lighter, it's smoother, it's well oiled, it feels more easier to operate. It's just generally easier and lighter. And it makes the driving experience feel more car-like. Now, yes, there's a lot of changes underneath the skin of this Innova HyCross. The biggest of them being the new platform. This is now a monocoque platform compared to the ladder-on frame of the previous one. I think that too contributes to the car-like dynamics of the Innova HyCross. The whole platform, it feels a lot more sophisticated. The way it drives, the way it rides, the way it handles, all of that feels a lot more sophisticated. It feels 2 steps up on the old Innova Crysta in terms of just sheer refinement and the comfort that it delivers. And of course, there is the other big change, which is the engine. There's no diesel engine in this, but instead you have a 2-liter hybrid motor. That is something else that really defines and very, very strongly defines the driving experience. And let me start with the drivetrain. You know, when I got into the Innova HyCross first, I pushed the start button and nothing happened. It just put up a ready sign on the dashboard, and then it hit me. Oh shit, this is a hybrid. You know, it took me a second to realize that yes, this has a full EV mode. This is a hybrid. So what it essentially does is, if there's enough charge in the battery, it will start up absolutely silent in full EV mode, and that's a really nice feeling. It feels quiet, it feels upmarket, it feels silent, it feels luxurious in a sense, because you do associate silence with luxury. And then once you get on the move, it will remain in EV mode depending on certain conditions. It bases the charge of the battery, the speed you're at, the sort of acceleration you're demanding. All of that stuff defines how long it stays in EV mode and how it basically, when the petrol engine kicks in. Now, when the petrol engine does kick in, it is pretty seamless. It's not something that you will realize instantly. And in terms of quietness and refinement, it's there, you know, as long as you're not driving it too hard, as long as you're not asking for too much acceleration, this thing is very, very refined. At medium, low positions of the throttle, it's very, very quiet. It does get loud, however, if you ask for hard acceleration. So, say now I'm at 40 kilometers an hour. The second I ask for hard acceleration, it becomes very, very audible. That CVT effect, it is around to some degree. It's not as bad as I expected it to be, but the CVT effect does make itself shown, and with that, the engine does become fairly audible. So I think the trick to driving the Innova HyCross is to not ask too much in terms of acceleration too aggressively. You know, if you want quick overtakes, okay, sure, you'll get that loud noise for that quick overtake, but then you back off, you know, don't drive it too hard. It's a much more enjoyable experience that way. Now, performance. Is the performance there? Toyota claims a 0 to 100 time of 9.5 seconds for the Innova HyCross. That is fairly quick. And honestly, that's something I can believe. It is fairly quick, and I think a lot of that is down to the responsiveness of it. You know, you get on the gas, it does feel fairly responsive because you do have electric motors filling in torque where the engine is not around, and it does move around quickly. It's not like neck snapping acceleration, it never will be, but it is fairly quick. I think the diesel Innova, the torque, the sheer torque of the diesel Innova does pull harder. So maybe in gear, the diesel Crysta will be quicker, you know, from say 30 to 60. But this is fairly quick. It's not a slouch. If you want to make quick overtakes, you can make quick overtakes. It's not going to hamper you in any way. There's a specific driving style that you need to inculcate when you drive these hybrids, and I think it's a matter of time before you get used to that. You can't drive it like a turbocharged car. You know, it has different characteristics, and you've got to work and evolve your driving style around those characteristics for it to be effective. The big question is fuel economy. Toyota claims over 20 kmpl. I wish I could give you an accurate number right now, but we have the car for such little time that there's no way I can give you any sort of accurate fuel economy number. I have driven the car for 26 kilometers at the moment. That's when I reset the trip meter, and it's given me 14.1 kmpl. Now it's a mix of all sorts of driving. I've been evaluating it, so I've been hard on the gas, hard on the brakes, hard on the gas, hard on the brakes, a little bit of coaster here and there. This is far from ideal conditions to give you an accurate fuel economy number. So take what I'm saying, that 14.1 figure, with a pinch of salt. Yeah, it's not an accurate number. That we're going to have to test this for a longer time. Maybe once we get the car in Pune, we put it through the paces over there, we run it around in the city for a longer time, maybe a day or 2 days, then we can get you an accurate number. Now let's talk about ride quality. I think ride quality is really impressive. It's got a long wheelbase, so it does ride very well. But I think even when you compare it to the older car, the refinement in the ride, the fact that it's much more settled than before, the fact that it doesn't bounce around as much, the damping is a lot more controlled, all of that makes a huge difference to the way you feel inside this car. You feel a lot more stable, a lot more planted, a lot more secure behind the wheel over here. It's a really nice sensation. Look, there are drawbacks to the fact that it's shifted from a body on frame to a monocoque. For example, if there are really big bad potholes, you can't hammer through them in the same way that you used to in the Innova Crysta. You do have to back off a little bit. It does not take that sort of thrashing with the same amount of carefreeness. You know, you have to back off a little bit. But I think there are trade-offs, and I think that's a fair trade-off to make. I'm okay not driving through bad roads as fast or as aggressively as I could on the Innova Crysta for the upsides, which are a lot more settled ride, a lot more comfortable ride. It's a lot quieter inside the cabin. It just feels a lot more refined. And I think the slickness with which it goes about its operations, I think that is something that stands out too, and that's a feature of the monocoque. You know, the body on frame is a little crude. It does need to be tuned in a specific way. The monocoque, it gives you a lot more in terms of that refinement of the driving experience. I'm not talking about the refinement of the engine. I'm talking about the refinement of the chassis, if you know what I mean. How the road filters through or doesn't filter through into the cabin. That the monocoque really shines with. Now in terms of handling, this is a massive step up on the Crysta. The inherent advantages of the monocoque once again shine when you take it in the corners. The steering feels very nice, very direct, but what's more important is how settled, how planted, and how communicative the chassis feels. You no longer feel like you're sitting on top of the Innova when you're handling it and steering it around. You feel like you're sitting inside it, and when you're driving it around, when you're controlling it, maneuvering it, it feels more responsive, more direct, and it engages you better. This is not going to be a fun to drive car. It is a little more fun than the Crysta, but it's never going to score very highly on objective fun to drive ratings. But that said, it is a better handler in that it feels more settled in corners. You can carry more speed in corners. The manner in which it can take on a series of bends, it's a lot more composed than before, and that makes it a nicer car to drive. It's just easier, more stress-free. You have to think less to drive this car fast in the corners. It's more natural, if you know what I mean, and that makes it a much nicer car. Now, something that's also worth talking about are the ADAS features. This has lane keep assist, it has radar-based cruise control, it has auto high beam, and it also has a blind spot monitor. Now, apart from the auto high beam, I've got a chance to try out all of them, and they work pretty well. The lane keep assist, it keeps you in your lane, but it doesn't take over steering completely. It'll give you a warning sign saying, please put your hands back on the steering wheel if it feels like you're not in control. The radar-based cruise control, it's pretty much simple, straightforward. Blind spot monitors, you've got two little icons in your mirror. Those are really useful. They help when you're out on the road. Just a little bit of a safety feature, nothing too major. And it also has auto high beam headlamps, which means if it detects oncoming traffic, it will dip the high beam and it will put the full beam only when there's no oncoming traffic. But all of these things can be turned off, so they're not really intrusive into the driving experience. Even the lane keep assist, the first time I stepped out, it slightly annoyed me because every time I wanted to overtake, it kept trying to take control. But it's just a couple of clicks on the MID and it goes off, it's straightforward. Overall, this Innova HyCross is a massive step up on that Crysta. The Crysta, it did feel a little agricultural. It was incredibly good at what it did. It was a superb MPV, but it did feel that little bit agricultural in the way it drove, in the way the steering felt, the way it rode over bad patches of road. You did always in the back of your head know that this was a truck platform. This does not feel that way. This is a proper monocoque platform. The platform here is shared with the Voxy, which is sold in Japan. And it makes a huge difference to the way this car feels in every single aspect, in terms of the ride quality, in terms of the handling, in terms of the refinement, in terms of how it deals with our roads, in terms of how you drive it, the sensation that it delivers, the comfort, the luxury that it offers on the inside, all of that. Massive, massive difference. Now, does the fact that it is front-wheel drive and not rear-wheel drive make a difference? I don't think so. This is not a Porsche 911. You're not going to be drifting it around corners. For the sort of application that it has, the sort of use cases that it has, front-wheel drive works absolutely fine. There's really no trouble whatsoever. Look, there's no denying that the Innova HyCross is extremely competent at everything that it does. It moves the bar up significantly from the Innova Crysta, whether it's when it comes to ride quality, handling, the refinement, all of that. Maybe it lacks in terms of that outright punch, that torque that the diesel motor has, but in every other way, it is a mile better. Two questions remain though. First, will this remain as durable as the Toyota Innova Crysta? We've seen Crystas that run for 4, 5, 6 lakh kilometers without trouble. Will a monocoque chassis be able to deal with that sort of abuse in Indian conditions? We spoke to Hideki Mizuma, who's the chief engineer of the Innova, and he assured us that it will. He says Indian road conditions are better, and the Toyota has been engineered to current Indian road conditions to deliver on the promise of QDR, quality, durability and reliability that Toyota is known for. The second question that remains, and that is the crucial question, is the price. What will the Innova HyCross be priced at? And that will honestly determine its success. I expect these top-end versions of the Innova HyCross to be priced between 30 and 32 lakh rupees. And for that sort of money, it's not really value for money, but it gives you a whole lot of car. It's a whole step up from the Crysta, and it delivers so much comfort, so much luxury, and a genuinely enjoyable driving experience. This is going to be one MPV to look out for.